Welcome to the MAHA Media Hub, and welcome to the MAHA Revolution. I'm Tony Lyons, president of MAHA Action. We're here to make it easier and more affordable to be healthy in this country. We're here to combat the fact that we're living in the first generation where children are likely to live shorter lives than their parents and to be sicker than their parents. We're here to end the chronic disease epidemic. We're also here to make sure, as part of that our food is healthier than it's been before, that our companies are convinced to stand behind the products that they make. And we're here for dialogue and debate. We're here to engage with all stakeholders, from private companies to government to activists. We're here to build relationships, to build bridges, to support and encourage and get tangible results for the American public. And we're here to amplify the incredible progress that's being made by the Trump administration and by Secretary Kennedy. What's happening is nothing short of historic. You might not read about it in any newspaper, but it's happening, and we want to make sure that the American public knows. You need only to look last week at the changes to the food pyramid, having it turned on its head, being redirected towards gold standard science. These are the types of changes, and this is the kind of progress that is just critical to making this country healthy once again. And these are changes that we can all be proud of and that will improve health outcomes for every American for years to come. I'm proud to be part of it. On today's show, we'll hear directly from leaders, innovators, activists, all the stakeholders who are driving these changes. Dr. Drew is going to be first. Well, he'll come on later, but he spent decades treating addiction, and he'll share his perspective on the Great American Recovery Program. Then at some point, we'll have Dr. Oz, and he'll join with updates from CMS. Then we're going to have Jax Bari, who's our youngest Media Hub speaker ever, and he'll talk about his advocacy for clearer labeling of gluten and gluten cross-contact on food products, work that is really directly contributing to FDA changes. And he's just a young kid. So it's so important to see that we can all be part of this revolution. Later, we'll also hear from Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, who returns to discuss how protecting and activating the immune system can increase longevity. And, as Dr. Oz said this week, 1 additional year of every American's life adds something like $3 trillion to the economy. So these are issues that affect every part of our country. So we're right at the center of so many different things. We'll also be joined by many of our regulars, Dr. Robert Malone, Gary Brecka, Sayer G, and of course, Russell Brand. First up, we're going to have Dr. Eric Berg. He's a globally recognized health educator. He'll cover an urgent issue in Florida, a farm bill provision that expands a food disparagement law, making it easier for agricultural companies to sue critics of sugar and farming practices like the use of pesticides. Really important issue, and I'm so glad to have Dr. Berg on with us once again. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate it. I want to share something and make everyone aware of something that's really, really important. So there's a bill moving through Florida that could make it very risky to criticize sugar and other ingredients and other ultra-processed ingredients. So, Big Food is asking for legal protection. So we can't talk about it anymore. So this is not, it has nothing to do with the information is false or true. It has everything to do with, shutting down the opposition. And if you talk negatively about it, you can end up in a lawsuit. So Florida already has a defamation law that if someone lies, they can be sued. But this bill is very, very sneaky. It takes it one step further because the current bill in Florida has everything to do with this one word, perishable foods. So that would be fruits, vegetables, meats, things like that spoil quickly. So they want to take the word perishable out of the picture to open up this very strict limit of what they have this defamation guidelines on. So this bill, if they remove this, this would apply to now all agricultural products, not just sugar, but also pesticides, fertilizer runoff, soil contamination, water pollution from farming methods. And if you talk negatively about this, you could end up in a lawsuit. So this is a total protection. So even, like I said before, even if it's true, they could sue you. And if you lose, you have to pay their attorney's fees. It's that bad. So, and most people are not going to be able to afford to fight that battle. And this is their strategy. So, I mean, if you just think about sugar, for example, like it's well known in science that sugar causes metabolic disease, insulin resistance, fatty liver, chronic inflammation. I mean, this is a credible fact, but it doesn't matter because they could still pull you in and sue you. And so my question is, if sugar was so harmless, why would they need to put this gag law in act? So I'm going to have a link. We're going to send out a MAHA report with a link to have people fight back and petition because we have an opportunity to stop this. But if I'm not mistaken, it went through. I don't know what the results are, but I think there was a vote today. I don't know what happened. But if you live in Florida, you definitely need to call your congressperson. But it's not just about Florida. It's because the foods that are manufactured in Florida also are shipped out throughout the United States. So it's kind of a United States problem. And this has nothing to do with protecting the farmer. This has everything to do about protecting an industry that literally profits from chronic disease. 90% of chronic disease stems from ultra-processed foods. And now this is another sneaky way to get protection against people criticizing them. I just did a video on this. I'm going to be putting this out, but we all need to band together and fight this like immediately. So we'll share a link down below and definitely make yourself aware about it. Thank you, Tony, for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much. You know, it's so clear that, this kind of law that, our government shouldn't be in the business of protecting big companies. It should be in the business of protecting the American public. So MAHA is going to be against any liability shields, any gag orders like these, that are at the state level where these companies are going after our right. They're attacking real science because real science means that you have to be able to debate, you have to be able to criticize, you have to be able to introduce new science, gold standard science, or just to disagree. So thanks so much, Dr. Berg, for what you're doing and for standing up for what's right, just time after time. Next up, we have Sayer G. He is the founder of GreenMed Info and the chairman of the Global Wellness Forum. He's a member of a proud member of the Disinformation Dozen, right alongside people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., which it's been described, and I agree, as an incredible badge of honor. He's one of the toughest and most steadfast warriors, and it's been just great at putting all of the progress that we've been making and that this government has been making into context. So thanks so much, Sayer. Thanks for coming on once again.
It's always an honor to be on. Thanks so much. And, fundamentally, the moniker Disinfo Dozen, the truth is, it was really more like we were the deliberate dozen. We were spreading missing information. And of course, that was weaponized into the concept that, if you were promoting whole foods as a way to take control of your health, or to end the chronic disease epidemic, that was somehow so radical and so dissenting of the orthodox approach that made you dangerous. And, to see what has happened in just the past month with the introduction of the Eat Real Food guidelines, it is such an affirmation of all of the countless moms and dads and health freedom advocates and, formerly the crunchy hippies, if you will, that formed the basis for the organic movement and, of course, working against the forcing of pesticides and genetic agriculture on our food system. They've all been vindicated. We're asking for such basic acknowledgement of the real gold science, which is really about how every atom of our body essentially comes from the foods that we consume, or the liquids we drink, and of course, the air we breathe. And there are certain things we can control, very few of them actually. We can't even control the air we breathe half the time, but the foods we eat are the domain that we can control. And consumers drove this reform, right? We voted with our forks and with our mouths and our shopping carts for decades, and until Whole Foods itself became a brand that got consumed by Amazon. And yeah, you could argue the system, which was also very much integrated into the declared pandemic, all of the preparations around making biosecurity the number one concern for humanity on the planet, which is another way of saying that we have a microbiome. And the old model was, oh, we have to be afraid of our own bacteria and viruses because, they're the number one cause of disease. It's a form of medical gaslighting that was globalized. We all saw it happen. And essentially, the people that always felt in their bones that you can control your health and reverse disease by either eating certain things, mostly ancestral foods, or avoiding the chemical gunk or food-like substances that were being essentially deployed, as necessary. We shifted just in the past month to such a radical and yet ancient way of reclaiming our health that I just have to celebrate that moment here, because fundamentally, when we're talking about food as medicine, we're talking about the fact that food, on a very grounded scientific level, has microRNAs, okay? Every organism has these microRNAs, which actually help to regulate the majority of the protein coding genes in the human body. So when you're eating something that's genetically modified, guess what? It's actually genetically modifying you. And that's why there's a big push, right, with the mRNA platforms to create edible vaccines for those that don't want to comply with coerced or forced injections. So there's an acknowledgement that that is how fundamental our health and integrity is based on what we're eating or not eating. So with the introduction of the Eat Real Food campaign, so many of us celebrated because finally there's an acknowledgement that by eating whole foods, that is the basis for health in every domain. It's not genes and germs are the primary cause of disease. It's rather there's chemical exposures and there are these incredible nutrients full of biologically indispensable information that we have to get from organically, hopefully, wild harvested permaculture, regenerative agriculture. And as we're doing this, we're regenerating the biosphere. And of course, our communities, our medical systems are all being regenerated with this movement. So I can't overstate the power that has just been delivered to the people, thanks to the new administration, thanks to our hero, Bobby, HHS Secretary, and the support that Donald Trump gave to him to empower him to give the people back what they need. So I think we should all really be still enjoying the afterglow of that celebration. And I hope people really start to comprehend that you could eat something as simple as pomegranate and reverse plaque buildup in your arteries. There are clinical studies that prove a simple, delicious intervention like that would render the whole $200 billion statin industry obsolete overnight if only people were allowed to articulate the truth. And that is happening now. And I'm super happy about this movement. And I just wanted to share that, as far as I'm concerned, the next 5 years are going to be incredible for the health of America because of this radical change in the nutrition guidelines.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And it's such a great point that there are all these great things happening, but that at the core of it, if we eat real food, if we take care of our bodies, then, those things that we've been told that the only way we can be healthy is to take more drugs, to take more vaccines, to use more pesticides, to kill everything, to eat more foods that have chemicals in them. And we know that isn't true. And what we're going to hear later from Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong is the importance of strengthening the immune system. And we've been doing so much over so many years to weaken the immune system of everybody in the country. So that's something that ends now. And I'm just grateful for all the work you've been doing and for your willingness to criticize and to stand up and fight things when they're wrong. And this Florida law that Dr. Berg talked about, we have to be able to criticize. You've been willing to do it at your own peril. And we're all grateful to that. And thanks again for coming on.
Thanks so much.
Next up, we have Gary Brecka, and he is the visionary founder of The Ultimate Human. He actually is the ultimate human in my mind. He's a renowned human biologist, biohacker, longevity expert, travels the world, telling people, explaining to people, arguing with people about how to live healthier lives. And, he's full of vitality, and he's helping so many millions of people regain their vitality. Great to have you on once again, Gary.
Yeah, and Sayre, just well put and very well said. There are more microbiota in a single tablespoon of healthy topsoil than there are human beings on the surface of the earth. And I think we start at the soil and work our way to the table. We fix the microbiome, fix a lot of the chronic disease pandemic. I wanted to pivot just to an article that's coming out in Bloomberg, probably tomorrow, maybe Friday. The target of the article is to destroy my credibility, but it's tangentially attacking MAHA, framing the MAHA movement as fringe, non-science backed, run by a bunch of creditless influencers, and the framing of this as a political movement. It says things like Donald Trump won the election in 2024. And it cites, me as increasingly using my platform to support political causes. I don't consider the MAHA movement political in any form or fashion. This is a humanitarian cause, not a political cause. It attacks Kennedy quite a lot in the MAHA movement, saying that we're galvanizing, and I'm helping to galvanize the movement's influencers, so we can share victories directly with each of our millions of followers, bypassing traditional media outlets that have documented growing dissent among officials in Kennedy's health department. I would actually say that's also false. It talks about me having Secretary Kennedy, Marty McCary, and others from the administration at my Miami home. Then it goes on to say how much I paid for the home. I don't see how that's relevant, but and then talking about how experts are skeptical of Brecka and MAHA health claims, having absolutely zero scientific or medical credentials or medical support for our claims, questioning whether or not vaccines could cause autism, and celebrating the slashing of federal funding for mRNA vaccines. It attacks, my narrative on folic acid, which if you have been following the FDA's recent announcement that folinic acid, which is a reduced form of folate, is absolutely necessary, now in the form of a prescription called leucovorin, is being authorized for frontline defense against certain neurodevelopmental disorders, mainly something called folate deficiency in the brain. And folate deficiency comes from a deficiency in nutrients that are common in whole foods and common in our food supply. And so I applaud the FDA for that, but it goes on to say that the CDC has said that this is, quote, not true. I also just want to make a blanket statement because there are allegations to the contrary in this article. I have no criminal record of any kind whatsoever. I have never been convicted of a crime in any jurisdiction in the world, not just the United States. I've never been convicted of a misdemeanor in any jurisdiction in the world. I have never once in my entire lifetime been investigated by a federal or state agency for any reason whatsoever. I have not even launched an investigation, and claims to the contrary are patently false. This is clearly an attempt to attack the messenger, not the message, because our message is winning. My point in bringing all of this up is that, reporters like Ben Stockton will spend months scouring the earth in search of anything negative that anyone has to say about myself or other influencers and other leading credentialed physicians, MDs, PhDs that support this movement, regardless of its credibility, omitting the self-serving interest of those parties, and even omitting publicly available evidence to the contrary. So I have a list of other folks that are probably on this hit list, and they include my compatriots like Callie Means and Vani Hari, who have been champions of this movement. Even Dr. Hyman, who was one of the co-authors of the nutritional guidelines. It's clear what this is directed to do. I'm happy to take any questions from anyone related to this article. But keep up the good fight, because what we're doing is winning, and it's meaningfully moving the needle for the American people. I think that for all of us to be a small part of public policy, a shift in public policy is a generational gift and an impact that I don't think any of us would be able to do on our own. And with that, I'll yield back the 3 seconds of my time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gary. And I'm so sorry on behalf of the whole MAHA movement that you have to deal with this. You know, it's the kind of thing that Sayer G and Bobby Kennedy had to deal with for such a long time when they were, like Sayer said, called part of the disinformation dozen. You know, when you're doing really good work, when you're out there doing God's work, risking everything for it, you know, people are going to call you these kinds of things. They're going to attack you. They're going to come after you in every way that they can. But, you know, they don't have a problem with the thousands of chemicals in our food. They don't have a problem with the obesity crisis. They don't have the problem with a food pyramid that was an absolute lie for a whole generation. You know, they're not going after any of the companies that are polluting the environment, our food, our water, you know, any of these companies. They're going after you. So what does that tell you? And I say what it tells you is that these are not investigative journalists. These are people who just work for those companies that are poisoning the American public. And so this is just an act of desperation, that they're coming after the people who are delivering the message, who are delivering the truth. And, you know, that's a sign of the incredible success that you've been having and
Thank you.
the incredible victory that you're having for bringing information that's hard to get to people. But once they hear it, it's hard to unhear. So I think it's really having an impact, and that's what this shows. And I think that these kinds of people, you know, that these places like Bloomberg, you know, they're not investigative journalists. And I just want to say it once again, this is corrupt corporate, you know, brainwashing propaganda, and they're doing it to protect corporate profits, not to protect people. So I just want to thank you again for all the incredible work that you're doing. I hope you'll keep right on doing it. And I hope that everybody watching this show protects and defends Gary Brecka and everybody, you know, like him, all of the other people coming on to this show, all of the activists, all the people who are working day and night to do things that are really good for the American public versus all these companies that are really working to harm the American public. So, I mean, I could talk for an hour because it's so important. And I just want people to hear it, and I want them to help and to act on it and to repost things. And I hope that you'll keep on coming on the show because we all believe in you, Gary.
Thank you. I'm not going anywhere. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. Next up, we have yet another fighter for justice. He's one of the most important voices for medical freedom and informed consent, and just an incredibly smart guy who's been taken a great role in exposing the corruption in our medical establishment, just fighting day and night, posting things all the time, just doing great work. And I'm proud to call him a friend. I'm proud to have him continue to come on this show. Welcome, Dr. Robert Malone.
So do me a favor, Tony. Send Gary a copy of Cywar, and I'll be glad to pay the bill.
I'll do it free of charge.
One of the themes for today is protecting your immune system and things that can damage your immune system. Now, at the moment, forgive me, I'm on the road to go see Governor Morrissey and the Secretary of Health, Arvind Singh, for West Virginia. So this is why I'm on the road. What I want to talk to you about is one of the tasks that were assigned to me at the ACIP. And you'll all recall that the ACIP meeting is coming up at the end of this month. And I hope that all of you get a chance to submit to give comments so we don't just get swarmed by the haters. But for the moment, I want to talk about some new data that's really become quite clear. There's 4 peer-reviewed papers regarding the mRNA vaccine products and what's called IgG4 class switching. Now, I don't want to get down into the weeds of the immunology. If you want to read about that, to your heart's content, you can look at the essay that I put out on Malone.news 2 days ago that's getting republished in a number of places. But it's clear that these repeated boosters are driving this phenomena called IgG4 class switching, and also elevating a cytokine, a signaling molecule called IL-10. So who cares? These are signs of a form of immunosuppression. You'll recall that I and others have talked about immunosuppression or immune tolerance as a potential side effect associated with these mRNA products. But now the science has become clear for at least one aspect of that. So what's happening, particularly with the repeated boosting, is that it's driving your immune system to switch the antibody responses away from antibodies that will protect against infection and spread of the virus towards a type of antibody that is literally immunosuppressive. This is the same thing that's done when you allergies and you go to a rheumatologist and they give repeated allergy vaccinations. This is a way to induce tolerance. And what's happening, as is clear now in the data, with these repeated mRNA boosters, is they're driving tolerance against not only the spike protein and away from the antibodies that would protect against replication and spread, but the elevated levels of IL-10, this cytokine, that are being produced are high enough that they're going to impact on other types of immune responses. And this includes responses to other infections, say influenza, and other vaccines. So this is well documented in the literature that this happens, for example, with worm infections. If you want to run a vaccine trial, you have to be very careful that you do it in the United States if you want to use those data in the United States. Because if you run those studies in Africa, you get a very different immune response. Why is that? Because there's a whole lot of worm infection in Africa, which drives high IL-10 responses. And those IL-10 levels suppress the immune response to any vaccine that you administer. So the bottom line here is that what's happening with these repeated boosters is we're transforming infection or even the somewhat protective response associated with 2 doses of the mRNA vaccines that tend to still be more IgG1 and IgG3 predominant, like with natural infection. We're driving it towards an immunosuppressive phenotype. These repeated boosters have to stop. And what it also demonstrates, by the way, is that the folks that advanced the Great Barrington Declaration actually got it right. And we now know why in terms of the science and the immunology. What they've done is with this, they have, by universal boosting like this, they've caused children, adolescents, young adults, people at essentially no risk for severe COVID disease, towards a type of immune response in which they're suppressed inflammatory-wise against COVID, but they're enabled to replicate and spread. Now, COVID is an interesting disease, and if you're at risk, the high-risk people, it's the inflammation that kills you. It's not the original infection. So there may be some logic for using these products in those that are at high risk, but by giving them to everybody, what they've done is set things up for enhanced replication and spread. And of course, that leads to the genetic drift and the escape mutants that we've seen emerge throughout the entire time course of COVID. So that's a key thing to know. These repeated boosters are actually changing, and in some ways damaging, immune response in people that don't need them, that are better off just to have the natural infection and natural immunity. So that's my message. Thanks a lot for listening. Please tune in for the ACIP meeting. and do your best to give us support by trying to log on and provide your own comments. Over and out.
Thanks so much, Robert. It's such a great point that the immune systems of everybody in the country have been damaged, just time after time in so many different ways, over-vaccinating, eating the wrong foods, too many antibiotics. So, this is the time when I think we can start to turn that back. And I think you're playing an incredible role in that, and we're all grateful. Next up, we have Dr. Drew, and he's a board-certified internist, an addiction specialist, and a well-known media personality. He's the host of Ask Dr. Drew, and Dr. Drew Pinsky joins us today to discuss the Great American Recovery Initiative. Thanks so much for coming on again, Dr. Drew.
You bet, Tony. I mean, this is a very exciting time. The executive order, the so-called American Recovery Initiative, plus RFK Jr. has allocated $100 million to this initiative. This is a major step forward. Addiction is an epidemic that is killing millions of people. I think most people are aware that the opioid crisis kills 100,000 plus people a year. Alcohol has untoward damage to our system. It's the only drug that pretty much everybody uses that's an active carcinogen and a poison to most tissue in the body. In fact, I can only think of 2 or 3 cell types that aren't rendered more carcinogenic as a result of alcohol. We've made a huge issue with tobacco. We are finally going to make an issue with substances. And it is being chaired and led by an important group. This is what's most exciting about it for me. We finally have people who themselves are in recovery, RFK Jr., recovering from heroin addiction, Catherine Burgum, who is the wife of Doug Burgum, who was the North Dakota governor. I used to go to North Dakota to help them with their initiatives because Catherine, a recovering alcoholic, did a yeoman's job improving the circumstance of recovery in North Dakota. And these two are now going to bring it to the country. SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, now is also led by people who are in recovery and understand 12-step. Understand this. I've worked in recovery treatment for 30 years. Recovery is possible for every addict. They need to be motivated. They need to be brought into the process. And the process of mutual aid is free. And it's available 24/7 around the clock for everybody. And now with the advent of Zoom, it's constantly available. The fact that we do not advocate on behalf of free services, free healthcare, free, if I said it's free, 12-step is free. And it has measurable effects. John Kelly, the head of addiction services at Harvard University, showed in an epic, the name of the review he did. I'm blanking on the state-of-the-art review. The point, it'll come to me in a second. He did a state-of-the-art review that showed that mutual aid did as well as or better than professionally managed services, and it was better when abstinence was your goal. This is killing millions of people, and we are finally going to turn to the solution. It is toxic empathy that has had harm avoidance as the one and only strategy in the treatment of addiction, and it just killed untold numbers of people. The reality is that the addictive process, when it is in place in all settings, even if a nurse is administering the drug, in all settings, the addictive process is progressive, and it ends in death, hospitalization, imprisonment. One of those places is where it goes, and too often it's going to death, particularly in today's day when fentanyl and methamphetamine are ubiquitous. The streets are littered with people who are not given a chance at recovery because there's been an ideology in place that has been attacking recovery for 30 years. This is the first time we're going to turn to the solution. Governor of my state said that it's impossible to treat addiction. I didn't know what I've been doing for 30 years. I didn't know what the the Board of Addiction Medicine has been doing for the last 40 years, because we have been helping people and no one has listened to the experts on this matter. And it has been one size fits all, which has been harm avoidance. And that has done untold harm. We are finally going to go help these people. And again, what's most exciting, it's being led by people who themselves have recovered from opiates, stimulants, and alcohol. and it will make a huge difference. Mark my words. This is the beginning of something very special. So keep an eye on this in terms of the health and the humanitarian, as Gary Brecka said, initiative of MAHA. I don't think anything will have a deeper and more profound impact than this move if it's executed properly. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Drew. And those are just great points. I mean, the idea that recovery is possible is such an important point, and that now we have $100 million so that for millions of people all around the country, it's going to be free. So, and that's another way.
It's always been free. It's always been free. This is the thing that people don't get. It's free services. They're available all the time. You just go online. You can have them right now. The 100 million is going to be to get people in condition where they can tolerate those services. We've let people drift so far into mental illness and neurological disorders and medical conditions that we have to bring them back, reconstitute them so they can actually do the work of recovery now, which will be possible for everybody. And we need to begin that process for all.
That's great. Good check there on my statement. So important, though, that treatment is free, that it's easier, that it's accessible, and that people know about it. So thanks so much for letting people know that and for doing all the incredible work that you've been doing. The idea, once again, recovery is possible. We can make it easier. We can make people healthier. That's what we're here for. Thanks so much.
Bet.
Next up, we have Russell Brand. And Russell is an incredible guy. He's evolved from a comedian to a consciousness explorer, using his massive platform to question mainstream narratives. That probably doesn't make him many friends. He's, really been willing to say absolutely anything. Nobody can accuse him of holding back. That's exactly what we need. That's what real science is. People, questioning everything. Russell Brand does that. Thanks so much for coming on again, Russell.
Only Lyons, I didn't think it was possible to love you more, but it clearly is, because you've just made me love you a bit more. Thank you for that lovely introduction that even dared to venture that I might consider myself a scientist. That's extraordinary. I mean, I certainly did a lot of field research in various areas of addiction, but luckily there were no negative side effects to all of those years of hedonism. As of speaking, it's been a complete consequence-free venture. As a matter of fact, the consequences only really start kicking in when you speak out against powerful interests. I'm sure, like many of the people on the call, I'm absolutely adoring the Epstein file moment, trying to keep one eye on the fact that behind these Epstein files and all of the gossip and paraphernalia and excitement and that kind of vindictive love vendetta joy that can accompany people getting their comeuppance. When I say people, I mean the presumed participants in global institutional exploitation of vulnerable people. It's interesting, isn't it, that there are some people that you really, really want to be Epstein filed. Like when it's like the Clintons, I'm like, or when it's Bill Gates, I'm like, What about that Bill Gates is in there as having asked Jeffrey Epstein for how he can slip a Mickey penicillin to his missus? Like, oh no, because he copped a dose. He picked up a dose from sleeping with a Russian prostitute, according to the allegations, and then wanted to try and get medication for an STD into poor Melissa Gates without her knowing. How unlike Bill Gates to demand that other people take medication for one of his crackpot ideas. Oh yeah, no, there was that whole global pandemic when we all had to take experimental vaccines because dear old Bill Gates thought it would be a good idea and had even run a global rehearsal for it. Extraordinary man, extraordinary times. But I suppose what's at the heart of the Epstein files, as well as, presumably exploited victims and real people that have suffered the dreadful horror of sexual exploitation, is an iteration of our understanding that there are powerful individuals and institutions that seem to require sexual blackmail as part of their modus operandi. And what interests me, actually, Tony, and I wonder if this is still the purview of the MAHA movement, is that there might be something spiritual behind it. Now, with your last guest there, beloved Dr. Drew Pinsky, the surprisingly jacked Dr. Drew, If you ever meet Dr. Drew in person, he's jacked. That guy's hench. He's got some serious deltoids on him and a wonderful chest. Interesting to talk about the subject of recovery with him, because recovery is a kind of entry point to spiritual awakening. Those of us that have been blessed with chemical dependency on those parasitic substances, crack and heroin, are well aware that there is no idol or object to which you can give your dedication, devotion, and reverence that will not in the end extract a dreadful price. All of us, though, are guilty of false idolatry, for the culture demands its dues. It demands, I said dues. Did you see how much effort I put into that pronunciation? That's with a D-E-W. It demands its dues. It demands that you pay penance. It demands that you bow down at its altars. It demands that you sacrifice even your children to its screens and its conglomerations of near toxic foods, if not actually toxic. One of the things I suppose that I would like to contribute to this ongoing slew of information amidst the great and noble men like Robert Malone, and I can see that Gavin de Becker is even now poised like a panther to leap into the conversation, flinging axioms and wisdom at any moment, those great and powerful claws, that irrefutable and brilliant mind. Have you read Forbidden Facts? I normally try to keep forbidden facts somewhere in arm's reach about me at all times. I never know when I might need a forbidden fact. It's like a kind of methadone for my mind. It keeps me alive. It keeps me floating. One of the things I want to ensure, I suppose, is that this movement remains spiritually vehement, because indeed Bobby Kennedy, for all his rakish, raconteurish brilliance, for all his elegance, for all his silver screen movie star credentials, for the wonder of his surname, for the wonder of his beauty, his elegance and his eloquence, he's a very spiritual and spiritually beautiful man, a very beautiful man of recovery, a man of great humility, a man who I've been gifted with the company of amidst the fallen. And I've seen how he behaves among broken people. And I've seen that what used to be referred to with Princess Diana as the common touch, an easy, near effortless ability to connect with people. Because the truth is, for all of us, when dealing with key workers, social workers, people at treatment centres, people when you're arrested, when you're fallen and broken, when the crack and the heroin have worked no more and you've buckled under their brown and white weight, is when these people offer their counsel, you often think, you don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to be injured and wounded and lost. And I know with Bobby Kennedy that he does know, that he's aware, that he's been there, that he's not a tourist in the vast realms of pain that seem to be deliberately amplified in these systems that require darkness, these systems that require all of us to be dependent and addicted. You'll be aware that the models deployed invisibly behind the screens we all clutch and bow down before used information derived from casinos and addiction to ensure that their products remained maximally attached to the hands and minds of users. You'll be aware too that the foods we eat load up in substances that we're not equipped to deal with, that we cling to inwardly, that we glom onto and addict to. So addiction, in a way, is everybody's issue now, not just with dependency upon obvious chemicals, but dependency upon a system that wants you addicted, devoted, dedicated, and broken, bowed down before its false orders. Tony, thanks as always for giving me an opportunity. I can't see a timer now. In fact, I've had to watch throughout this. Gavin de Becker has been kind of on my screen, and there are a few people on this earth that I love more than Gavin de Becker. You, Tony, are sort of making your way up the pantheon too. And it's not easy for me to remain focused when I can see his face. So I've had to look away some. So if you've got the option of listening to me or Gavin de Becker, choose Gavin de Becker. As we say in the 12 steps, if I say anything that contradicts what your sponsor tells you, listen to your sponsor. And I'd like to say this: if I've said anything that Gavin de Becker disagrees with, go with what Gavin de Becker thinks 100% of the time. And with that, I'm out. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, thanks so much. And that was a good point that I want to just get back to, which is the idea that, of bowing down to lies, to propaganda, to poisons, to drugs, to any of those kinds of things. And, MAHA warriors, Russell Brand, we don't bow down to pestilence. We strive to be healers. And, we are healers, the MAHA warriors, and our weapons are gold standard science and radical transparency and Russell Brand. Next up, we have, when Russell, you just mentioned exploitation of vulnerable people. And, next up, we have somebody who, Jax Bari is a 12-year-old. And he's refusing to be exploited or lied to or poisoned. And in fact, he's coming out and he's protecting other people. So, he's a notable activist, co-founder of Celiac Journey. He's a true MAHA kid, advocating with common sense answers that, to require labeling of gluten on all packaged goods and, a whole bunch of other things, doing great work. Really great to have you here, Jax. Welcome to the MAHA Media Hub.
12 years old, and I'm the MAHA kid. Thanks to Mr. Lyons, and thanks to everyone who's a part of the MAHA movement. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share my goal, eating without fear. Since 2020, I've been advocating to require the labeling of gluten as a major food allergen on all packaged foods in the U.S. The amazing new dietary guidelines just flipped the food pyramid. Similarly, the FDA is turning the tide on the gluten guessing game. Just 2 weeks ago, the MAHA momentum continued forward with the FDA taking next steps to require gluten labeling, demanding ingredient transparency. I'm so grateful. Like 729,000 American children, I have celiac disease, which is a potentially life-threatening food allergy and an autoimmune disease. Just before I started kindergarten, I was diagnosed with celiac when I wasn't growing. As I learned to read, I started with fairy tales and food labels, which are often incomplete and confusing. Celiac impacts more than 3.3 million Americans, which is more than 1% of the U.S. population. Celiac is triggered by eating gluten, a protein found in wheat, barley, rye, and most oats. The only treatment for celiac is a strict gluten-free diet for life. In 1985, the FDA issued a final rule which found that labeling gluten ingredients is more desirable than gluten-free labeling, and that all gluten ingredients must be identified by name when used in food. That was 41 years ago, but the FDA has never enforced this. Since 2006, wheat has been required to be labeled, but not barley, rye, or oats. That's created a massive food safety gap. Did you know that 44% of those who follow a strict gluten-free diet still get gluten once a month? Gluten ingestion for celiacs causes more than 200 debilitating symptoms, including anemia, cancer, intestinal damage, malnutrition, and so much more. Unlike traditional IgE-mediated food allergies, there's no rescue medication for celiacs in the accidental event of ingestion of gluten, and one cannot outgrow celiac. Gluten is like kryptonite to me. If I eat just 1 crumb of gluten, just a crumb, I can get very sick, living on the bathroom floor with vomiting and diarrhea for days. It's awful. Gluten also damages my small intestine. When I was 5 years old, I had Marsh 3 level damage to my small intestine from gluten. I was told that the doctors only see Marsh 4 level damage when they do an autopsy. It was really bad. Celiac is every bite, every day. Constant worrying, constant questioning, constant uncertainty, constant high cost. Since gluten is not declared as a major food allergen in the U.S., celiacs have been forced to rely on products that are voluntarily labeled gluten-free. Oftentimes, these products are ultra-processed foods that are sold at premium prices. Celiac is a disease, not a diet. Imagine if you had a tree nut allergy and only almonds and pistachios were required to be labeled, but not other tree nuts such as walnuts and pecans. That would create a massive food safety gap that needed to be closed. Fortunately for those with a tree nut allergy, that scenario is not the case. But that similar safety gap does exist with the voluntary labeling of barley, rye, and oats. That's why I filed a citizen petition with the FDA to require the labeling of gluten on all packaged foods in the U.S. In August, I met with the White House Domestic Policy Council about my common sense solution to the childhood chronic disease crisis. I'm grateful that the MAHA Commission included my common sense solution as one of the 128 bold initiatives in the Make Our Children Healthy Again strategy report. This marks the first time ever that a White House, Democrat or Republican, has included celiac disease in its policymaking. This is bipartisan, actionable, and not controversial. This is so common sense that 87 other countries require the labeling of gluten, including Canada, Mexico, and across Europe. We are thrilled that the FDA issued a request for information on January 21st about gluten labeling in response to my FDA citizen petition. We need the MAHA momentum to continue forward and for people to share their comments with the FDA on why barley, rye, and oats must be labeled, their challenges when shopping and reading labels, and their adverse reactions to gluten ingestion. I want to thank President Trump, Secretary Kennedy, Commissioner McCary, Kyle Diamantis, Callie Means, Dr. Heidi Overton, Jackson Allen, Carolee Geis, the White House Domestic Policy Council, the White House Office of the Public Liaison. Thank you again, Mr. Lyons. With your help, let's make eating without fear possible again, get gluten grains declared as major food allergens, and make America healthy again. Let's do this. Thank you, Mr. Lyons.
Thanks so much, Jax. You are incredible. You're an inspiration. And, you're exactly the kind of leader of a new generation, of a whole new generation of common sense activists, that represent millions of children who've been, given foods that are unhealthy, who've been given medicines or vaccines that are unhealthy. And it's so great to have you speaking out. And I hope that you go on to inspire millions of other children to do the same thing. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lyons. Great to see you.
Next up, we have Gavin Becker, and he is a security expert, but much more than that. He's just an incredibly wise man and the author of The Gift of Fear, and was, the main or one of the main financial backers of RFK Jr.'s campaign, both protecting him and funding the super PAC. But his most recent book, Forbidden Facts, is just a groundbreaking book. It's earth-shattering. It exposes a whole generation of lies. And I would say, everybody just reread this book. Read it carefully, reread it, tell your friends about it. It's just the kind of mind-blowing book that shows a level of corruption that you just will not be able to wrap your head around. So please read it. Please think about it. I'm happy to donate money for all the copies purchased. I just want everyone to know what's in this book. Gavin, thanks so much for coming on again.
Thank you, too. And obviously, I got a pre-introduction with all that love from Russell, and I'm grateful for it. And it's presented in good humor, which I appreciate. And thank you also, Tony, for not only the recommendation regarding the book, but the publishing the book as you did, where you make no money from the book and I make no money from the book. And we really do just want people to read it. What I found is, and what I hoped for, was that it could reach some of those people that are tough to reach, because we took many examples where the government debunked things, and I have to put that in quotes, debunked, that later turned out that the government was absolutely just lying. Agent Orange, baby powder and cancer, burn pits in Iraq, toxins in baby food, toxins in baby formula. The government in all those cases used the Institute of Medicine, this revered organization, and paid it to debunk the risks and toxins that were involved in those things and the harms. The Institute of Medicine is perceived as a government agency. but it's actually not a government agency. It's a totally private organization. The guy who runs it gets more than $1 million a year salary. And the Institute of Medicine was key in debunking all of those things I just mentioned to you. And what I did in the book is put them all together and mix them with childhood vaccines, so that childhood vaccines and brain damage are not a standalone topic. That would be a tough book to give to some people, but rather are just among the examples of the toxins that the government has told us were not toxins at all. And since I make no money from the book, and since you do, Tony, I'm very happy to encourage people to go and get it, because I've seen that book reach some people who we all know who are unreachable otherwise. And I'm not saying it works 100% of the time. I'm not even saying it's 95% effective like the mRNA vaccine, also in quotes, by the way. But I am saying that it occasionally works. There's another thing I want to discuss, which is Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong. I've had some opportunities to spend time with him, and he is quite electric and really is a marvel. And I think, Tony, you have him today, which is great, and I look forward to hearing from him today. But why I say he's a marvel, he's born in South Africa to Chinese immigrants, and at 11 years old, he won a big science fair. And then entered medical school at 16 years old. By 23, he was a doctor, and not just a doctor, but he graduated top of his class. And by 31, he was a chief surgeon at UCLA. And I mean, Patrick is just one of these people. We just don't encounter them very often in our lives. And I'm so grateful to know him, in his now older years. Not that he's old, but he's not 11 or 16 or 23 anymore. But he invented Abraxane, which is this chemo therapy that targets the cancer and spares the human being that's living around that cancer. One of the problems with most chemotherapies is that, of course, they're toxic to the cancer the tumor that you're trying to shrink or damage or interfere with, but most chemotherapies damage all the tissue around it. So Abraxane is now being used around the world, and it's really a global lifesaver. Patrick also built NantWorks, and he's bringing together AI and genomics and immunotherapy and even organ printing. And, I had to look up what I'm going to tell you right now, because I couldn't believe it when I first heard it, but it's true. He has close to 700 patents, and he's become a wealthy man as a result of the universe giving him the rewards that he deserves. And he personally funds research in poor places around the world. He also bought the Los Angeles Times, which, if I can be blunt, and Patrick, I don't know if you can hear me, it needed to be bought because it needed to move toward honest news, which is what you've done. And I'm blessed to know Patrick, and I tell you that time with him, like the time we're about to get, is quite special. He is relentless. He is brilliant. And, I mentioned that he's wealthy. He's a billionaire who did not go buy a yacht, but instead still wakes up at dawn every morning and studies scientific papers, like very few doctors we know do. And he is proof that one person can shift medicine forever. And I am confident that in addition to what he has done, he is going to do just that. He is going to shift medicine forever. Currently, he's advancing Anktiva, which is an immunotherapy drug that's already approved for bladder cancer. And now, just in the last few months or maybe even weeks, Saudi Arabia and some other countries have given approval for lung cancer combo, and the US FDA is considering his drugs for another type of bladder cancer, plus trials for lymphoma and more, pancreatic cancer in its early stages. So, he's got very strong data, but he doesn't have a fast track yet. I'd like him to. And basically, Anktiva is a big opportunity to crack harder cancers. And now, does he have resistance? Of course, he does have resistance, and maybe he'll talk about some of that. But let none of us be his resistance. And thank you very much for letting me speak about Patrick.
I'm really fascinated by the ideas that you discuss on so many different shows that I've heard you talk about, the idea of strengthening the immune system, as opposed to this idea that when bad things happen to us, we need to kill something. So, and then I'd like to mention one thing that Gavin mentioned, which is, and it's true of Gary Brecka too. So whether you're Gary or Patrick or anyone else, I just want to make it clear, there's nothing wrong with making money, but MAHA wants people to make money doing something that's good, doing something that benefits the public, doing that increases people's longevity and their happiness and their health, rather than poisoning the American public. And that's what the media ought to focus on. And they've let these people do that to all of us, to the American public in general, for a generation without attacking them. So, that's where it's so disingenuous. But Patrick, I just want to welcome you to the show and give you the floor. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. Just heard the tail end of Gavin was sort of embarrassingly nice statements he's made. So thank you, Gavin, for that. But look, I am, in all seriousness, this idea of MAHA, I'm so glad to be now participating in it, because I believe, as you may have said at the opening, the core essence of MAHA, to make America healthy again, is actually your immune system. And that's what I've been pushing now for over 30 years. Tony, I just shared with you two papers, and I think they're astounding for us to understand. One from JAMA that shows that they've done a review of the US general population, that if you have a low lymphocyte count, meaning low NK cells, low T cells, meaning the collapse of your immune system as you age, you have a significant increase in mortality of the US general population, whether you have cancer, whether you're basically part of aging. I think that is the concept we need to grab beyond the cancer and infection, which I'll talk about. The next paper, which I've just shared with you, which was remarkable, from the London School of Business, and I think Dr. Oz will speak a little bit to this. 1 year of increasing aging in terms of longevity by protecting your immune system is worth $38 trillion to the United States. 10 years is $367 trillion. That alone could change not only everything with regard to our healthcare system, but the entire debt structure of the country. So even from economic perspective, nothing else, when clearly I come from the health perspective, $367 trillion in 10 years is what's at stake, the opportunity to really address protecting the immune system. So let's talk about that. Why and what have we done to protect that immune system? Well, it turns out that the secret to this whole key was unraveled in 2008 by the National Cancer Institute, who recognized and discovered that if we activate the molecule called IL-15, called a cytokine in your body, and that cytokine would stimulate your natural killer cells in T cells. And the natural killer cells are there to protect your body from infection, aging, cancer. And they spent the last 10, 20 years trying to figure it out. How do we get this IL-15 as a therapeutic? And unfortunately couldn't do it until we figured that out. We had to modify the IL-15 so it binds to this IL-15 receptor of your NK cell and T cell. We had to actually make it sure it's an injection that can go there and last for 7 to 14 days and activate that. That's called Intiva. We struggled very much. I openly say that during the Biden administration for 4 years. 700,000 pages of review, and then finally they gave us the approval for a tiny little piece of bladder cancer. But it's very clear that with all the trials that we've done, including randomized trials, lung cancer, triple-negative breast cancer, Senator Reid's pancreatic cancer, head and neck cancer, triple-negative breast cancer, we were seeing complete responses, which means it's universal. It's a universal issue that protecting your immune system and addressing that is a new paradigm, not only for longevity, increasing aging. As I said, 1 year is $38 trillion. So in frustration, I moved my attention to Saudi Arabia. And very quickly, literally quickly, they approved us for lung cancer. And I'm now moving to meet with them again, where an entire scientific community of all of Saudi Arabia are coming together, and in which we're going to expand this to all other tumor types. I just had a call this morning with the United Arab Emirates who want this as well. This should be something that Americans should be able to have access to. We are now 13,000 requests and growing. So one of the things that I'm very concerned of, it should not be who you know and the privilege that can have access to this. It should be anybody and everybody. So my plea is I'm participating in MAHA. I think the core platform of MAHA, its essence, should be protecting the immune system. We now, for the first time in medical history, have unveiled the molecule that the National Cancer Institute said is the number one molecule out of 240 they tested, number one ranked molecule that could cure cancer. So all of this is now at our fingertips with this administration, not only with the savings that we could do, but the change in paradigm. I'm seeing patients daily. I just came from the clinic now, who are ravaged by chemo. I'm seeing patients who are in the third line, fourth line, fifth line, sixth line. Why are we doing that? I should be seeing patients, or we should in the country, who have just diagnosed with cancer. If we do that and use the tumor that's in the body as the vaccine and activate the natural killer cells and T cells, use the power of the body, we can actually change the paradigm. So guess what we've done? Glioblastoma, I was this weekend in Pasadena at a glioblastoma conference. Patients with recurrent brain tumors, we're getting near complete responses. These patients have their lymphocytes completely ravaged by the standard of care of radiation and chemotherapy. So I'm so pleased to now finally participate in your program here, Tony. And as you know, what we're going to be doing is putting a book together of all these literally decades of stories of patients who are still alive, having received this BioShield, and putting their videos together in this little booklet to tell the story that this is not a sort of fluky phenomenon. This is a fundamental, basic immunology of your body. This is how your body works. Dr. Oz shared with me his father's book that talks about lymphatics. And I'm so glad that I preceded his call, because I really believe that the whole system of understanding immunology, understanding protecting your immune system, changing the paradigm of care, doesn't mean we won't use chemotherapy. As Gavin talked about, I invented Abraxane. But Abraxane I invented because Taxol, I don't know if the women of your audience understand, Taxol is dissolved in castor oil. Think about that. We've been injecting castor oil into your veins, whereas I took albumin, a human protein, created a nanoparticle, so it could drive to the tumor and then activate your macrophages. So this is where this excitement is with me. I've just made the announcement of our first AI-driven robotic system that could take an apheresis from any one of us and generate billions and billions of natural killer cells and maybe CAR T cells, and where no human being touches it. What that means, I can now scale, democratize, and shorten, and actually reduce cost. If we can do all of this, we now have an ability to create what I call the World Bank of Natural Killer Cells. And this is where we're going. But I'm just struggling, I must say openly, to convince the current FDA that what has been holding back, not just for sepsis, but also for all tumor types. We've done the single-arm trials, get that. We're randomizing trials as we speak. Please help me, help the American public have access to this.
Thanks so much, Patrick. And that's, it's such an important point that strengthening the immune system is such an important part of this whole problem. And that, like you said, using the power of our bodies, has to be the first line of defense, and that science then builds on that. And we've got this generation where we've destroyed our immune systems. And so we have to rebuild them and use technologies like yours to strengthen them to get that power back. So thanks so much. And I believe Dr. Oz is ready and coming on next. Dr. Oz, great to have you on again. It's been a while. And we're always thrilled to get your updates from the front lines. And I watched that statement you made about how many trillions of dollars every year of additional longevity gives the American economy. Patrick mentioned that too. Such an important point. Maybe you can clarify that, and then also give us any updates you have. Thanks so much for coming on again.
But I missed you guys. It's been quite busy, as you know. I've been traveling around different parts of the country. Some of the issues we've been having around fraud, waste, and abuse have really exploded, and not just in Minnesota, but California. We're looking at, we're in South Florida. There's issues in other states as well that I can't speak to yet, but most folks appreciate that we have opportunities to redeploy those funds towards the kinds of preventive strategies that we're talking about with the MAHA movement. I made that comment about the opportunity for us to take our best resource in America, the most valuable thing we have, which are our people, and allow them to live at full capacity. And this is why MAHA is so critical. Oftentimes you talk about MAHA in terms of, walking your children down the aisle, being there for your loved ones, making sure that you live a fulfilling life and doing all the things you want to do. And those are all the main reasons that we care about the MAHA movement. But there's also the hardcore brass tacks reality of the financial benefit to the country of people being healthy. And let's just put some numbers on this. If we can get young people coming out of high school who are in a place where they can start working immediately. They've gotten either certificates to allow them to enter the healthcare system, for example, or they've gotten trade school education, or they're just ready to get going, or same thing out of college. They've learned a trade, so they're ready to get going if they want. Or if they're healthy enough along the way that they don't have chronic illnesses that hinder their ability to function at full speed, and they can work a full career, or because they're loving life so much and doing so well and feeling so good, they got the job that they desire, they actually want to work longer, like many Americans do, beyond the average retirement age of 62. That calculated number of benefit to the GDP, the gross domestic product, is about $3 trillion. For those of you who are budget geeks, that's more than our annual losses, puts us back into the black. We start to reduce our national debt, all from making people healthier and more connected and having more agency over their future. So it's a pretty good trade-off. And that's one of the reasons that I love healthcare, because we're fundamentally investing in you, the American people. Unfortunately, we're often doing it at the end of a long path of disease and destruction that has left you hobbled and not wanting to engage with life as fully as you otherwise would. So how do we get America back to where it was historically, able to be fully vital and connected? And there are many elements of that you've been talking about on the show. Patrick's wonderful talk is a good example. And he's kind of mentioned my father-in-law. My father-in-law is 89 years old. He was on the first heart transplant team in America. I was playing him once in Trivial Pursuit. I wonder how many people on the phone now have experienced this with their family. Playing him in Trivial Pursuit, the winning question, I'm about to pull it off. And the answer to the question, here's the question, is the Rolling Stone magazine called this doctor Rock Doc for being the first to play rock music in the OR. And sure enough, he was the answer. He got it right. Dr. Lamole won the point. He also came up with brilliant ideas about lymphatics, which are the waste disposal system of the body. It's how toxins get back to the heart to be pumped around and cleaned by the liver and the like. So much of what we're talking about in the MAHA movement revolves around looking at the fundamental ways our bodies work. And if we appreciate that and can make those changes, then I think we can achieve some of the goals that we desire. I want to leave you with one last idea. You're going to be hearing a lot about most favored nation drug pricing, which basically means instead of paying 3 times more for the exact same prescription medications that are branded than other countries pay, we're going to pay the exact same as these other countries. And I highlight this to you because one of the problems that I think we're facing in America is people get sticker shock when they go to the pharmacy. So we're going to pay for you to go to a doctor to deal with a chronic illness that might need a medication. We want you to take the medication. 1 in 3 times people cannot because they can't afford it. We want that to stop. We want, from now on, Americans who want to take a medication that's appropriately prescribed, not more than they need, in fact, the least that they need, ideally, but still what they need. We want them to be able to get those medications. And we believe that we can make this that much more accessible to the American people through a great website called TrumpRx.gov that Joe Gebbia, who's the founder of Airbnb, and Ed Kornstein and Noah Savio and others have built and put into place. So you're going to be hearing more about that as the site goes wider and starts to add more medications to it. But these kinds of advances that, again, brilliant people come in the government to serve us have been able to craft are worthy of your attention. Any of you listening right now, we're open for business. For those of you who want to participate in what I think is a generational opportunity to improve healthcare in America, many of you will in the right spot, do it where you are. God bless you for helping. But others who want to come in the government, give us a yell. All right. God bless you. Take care, Tony.
So yeah, just to restate that, $3 trillion per year. There've been so many people out there, like, Bill Gates used to talk about all the things that we could do, all the strategies to lower population to, which I think ended up also lowering longevity. Whereas Dr. Oz and this new team, this new Trump team at HHS, Bobby Kennedy, Jay Bhattacharya, this entire team is working to make it cheaper and easier to be healthy. And that's going to increase longevity. That's going to make people live more productive, healthy lives. It's going to be good for the economy. It's going to be good for all the people whose lives get better and healthier and happier. So, it's such important work that we're doing. And I'm grateful to everybody who's come on, spoken today, and all of you who are watching today. We have more people watching today than we've ever had in the 25 weeks that we've done this. So thanks so much for joining us for another great episode of the MAHA Media Hub. And what I'd like to say is that, we at the MAHA movement have powerful tools at our fingertips. I'm going to say this every week. The MAHA Report on Substack, please go there, please read it. Has great updates, really strong articles. We've got the incredible MAHA Institute roundtables, featured Jay Bhattacharya yesterday, the historic MAHA Summit, which we're going to do each year in December, the legislative tracker. The midterms are going to be so important that we need to really stay on top of that. MAHA Films, there's a new MAHA film coming out. MAHA Books, we have a bunch of books coming out. All the MAHA parties, the mailing list of more than 2 million MAHA warriors, and then just the thousands of influencers who are on this show who are going to amplify the incredible progress, the great work that Secretary Kennedy, Dr. Oz, and the whole team are doing each week. They're out there traveling around the country, meeting senators, meeting governors, just doing so much heartfelt work. And these are people who don't need to do that. They're not doing it for more money, more power, more fame. They're doing it to protect the American people, to improve health, to end the chronic disease epidemic. So we're going to harness every bit of the power we have, and we're going to work to the extent that we can with every cabinet member, every branch of government, to support and be a powerful resource for the Trump administration that we believe is doing an incredible job. We want them to win in the midterms. We want to be able to keep this incredible progress going. It needs to keep going. We all need it to keep going. So we overwhelmingly want to support the American government, the administration, in its efforts to make America healthy. And, we're going to be partners in that battle. We're going to work day and night to win the midterms, to win all of these incredibly important battles. So following this call, you're going to receive an email that's going to show clips from the last hour with important calls to action, with things you can repost. We hope that you'll share that content. We hope that you'll help us grow into a more and more powerful movement. Please go to our website. Read everything we have there, volunteer, get involved, pitch me, come on the show if you've got a really great big story. Subscribe once again to our best-selling Substack, the MAHA Report. Join us in this battle. And if you're in Florida, like Sayer said, and work with people like Dr. Joe Ladapo to fight this food disparagement law. What we're seeing is that these companies are failing at the federal level. At the federal level, there's a lot of progress being made. So they're going state by state, big sugar, big ag. They are trying to get liability shields, to get shields against any kind of criticism. And that is essentially shields against science and against progress. So let's work together to make America healthy once again. I'm so proud to be part of this fight. Thanks again for stopping into this show for this week.
America's children are sick, and moms have been betrayed. The time for empty promises, long past. Now is a time for action. MAHA is the most powerful force of collective action in generations. The grassroots power of moms and activists has created an army of health warriors with more reach than all mainstream media combined. Together, we can end the chronic disease epidemic. MAHA's influence is reaching millions. It's reaching Congress. And that energy, these chain reactions, are working.
How about Operation Stork Speed?
Dozens of food companies removing toxic ingredients.
I plan to lead by example.
MAHA is now.
We're talking about how to change the culture.
The American people want America healthy again.
There's a renaissance moment in health in America.
For health, freedom, and the truth. Join us at MAHA Action.